Welcome to the Creation Ship. Today we are going to make mixed media magic by using techniques in a new way and combining a couple elements to make a cute focal point. Let's get started. So I'm working on my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media art journal page. I've taken it out of the coils so I can work flat. Now, a quick, easy way to get a base coat of color on your surface is to brayer it on. I'm using Brilliant Yellow here and just brayering it on. I'm going vertically and then I'm going to go horizontally. I don't like going diagonally. Now this is going to give a soft base coat to our project. I did not gesso this page. There's no need to gesso it, so we can just jump right in. Now this looks really bright at this time. And that's okay because we're going to add other colors. Now I'm using, this is Amsterdam, and it's kind of like phthalo turquoise. It's a blue-green, and I'm brayering that on. Now I chose the yellow because of the focal image and where I'm going, and I know that now, so I wanted that in that color. The turquoise is a nice coordinating color, and I'm applying that. Now, yes, this doesn't look like anything that you may want, but we're not done yet. Now, often when I brayer, I also use white gesso. You could use white paint, and that just softens it and knocks it back. Remember, our goal here is to make some interesting patterns and layers and just get that base coat of color. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using the Ranger. I think it's the 2.5 brayer. I find that's the perfect size for putting onto art journal pages. Now I know I'm going to be adding more layers to this, so don't panic if you're not thrilled with it. I'm using this Jungle Vines stencil. Again, I know I'm going kind of outdoorsy, and I'm taking that same blue-green from Amsterdam paint, or phthalo turquoise, and stenciling on here. I'm not trying to get perfect stenciling. I just want some movement and pattern in the background. I don't want as much yellow to shine through because I know I'm going yellow with my focal image, but I do want some of that yellow in the background. I'm getting the paint on my makeup sponge tapping off, and then applying it through the stencil. This Jungle Vine stencil is one of my favorite stencils. It gives a lot of movement. It has that botanical feel, but that's also very neutral. It can be used for a multitude of projects. And you're going to see as I continue to add layers, these jungle vines are not going to be that visible. They're just going to be peeking through. And that's part of the mixed media magic. It's just everything you add on top knocks back what's behind it. Now here's one way that we're knocking it back. Now I'm taking white gesso or white paint. Actually, it's white paint, white acrylic paint. And I'm going to stencil through that same stencil with the white paint. Now you're not necessarily going to see this, but what it's going to do is knock back some of the turquoise that I put through. That's very in your face right now. If you don't like your background, it's probably because it's lacking some element. It just means you're not done. And it's one of the scariest things because you may, it's okay, think that about a background, but something may be missing. So here it's just knocking back some of that teal, turquoisey color, softening the background. Remember, the background I want to be in the background. I don't want it to overtake my focal image. Now for this project, I do know what focal image I am going to use. So I know the color and I know, the shape of it. And I'm picking things that coordinate with it. And you're going to see the background quickly. or the focal image coming up right up. So this is an interesting background, multi-layers. If you're not a subscriber, please, please, please help me out and grow my channel by clicking the subscribe button, then click on the bell, and to be sure that you're notified of upcoming videos. So here is my focal image. I am using this beautiful, vibrant napkin. This comes from Ninny's Napkins, and its name is Rika Yellow. I'm not sure that it's available, but you can use any floral napkin of any size to get the same effect. Now I've cut out a couple of the elements and I'm just playing with it, and I decide that I want just one because 3 won't fit and 2 looked kind of odd, but I also want a complete flower. So I'm going to make magic, and I'm going to combine 2 parts of the napkin to make one rounded flower. So I'm peeling off the excess of the napkin, and then I'm piecing it together. Now, not all napkins work this way, but it's like an extra bonus when you can layer them over and create a complete image, should you want to do that. I always like having options from my napkins. So I'm just cutting off that piece, and again, here I'm going to remove the excess plies and then glue everything down. So I'm going to glue the bigger piece down, and I'm using my fluid matte medium. I use the Liquitex brand. That's what I've always had success with. I'm putting it under and over. Now I'm gluing it down onto copy paper, because if I glued the napkin straight onto the background, that teal would come through and wreck my focal image. So here's the magic. One, we're putting it together. We're piecing napkins together to create our own image, something that really didn't exist. Now I've cut that to size. I don't want to overlap too much because it will be somewhat darker. And I'm just lining it up. Don't worry if it's not perfect. It's pretty forgiving, especially when we do future steps here. But you can see where I've overlapped it. You kind of have a bit of a dark line, so you want to minimize that by having it the least of that. Once it's dry, I'm just going to cut out my floral. Now, did you know, be honest, did you know when you saw the thumbnail that that was a napkin? Once that's cut out, I decide I'm going to add a border, and I'm using this Posies in a Row stencil with black paint. I needed some black in my background. I thought something was lacking, so I thought this was the answer. Made a mess here, grabbed a baby wipe, moved it back. And I can do that because everything is permanent. It's all acrylic paint. So and it's very forgiving. So if you're a beginner, you may want to just stick to things that are permanent to help yourself out. So there's the yellow, and you can see how that little bit of yellow when I brayer it on is just working so well with that focal image. And then I'm edging the page with black paint. I tried doing it with a makeup sponge, and then I go and use my floating acrylic technique, and this really frames the page. Instantly, it just turns it into a page in my mind. It's a very necessary step, and this is always the magical moment too for me. Loving how this is all looking. I still wanted some black, so I grabbed this heart stamp because I like the scale of it, and I'm stamping with black archival paint. And I wasn't sure about this, but again, this just transformed the page. Here's a magical moment. I'm loving that addition of black. It's really pushing back that jungle vines stenciling, but you still see it. Now, what it also does is kind of nullifies the posies in a row border. They really serve no purpose. And if I was doing this from scratch, I would omit the posies in a row stenciling that I did. I don't think it serves a purpose here. I love the heart stamp on there. It just added that black element, which gave contrast, which is the magic, and it made the background more neutral. You're not focused on the jungle vines. So the vines kind of go with the flower, the botanical thing. That's where I was going, the yellow from the flower. Now here I'm going to turn this flower, I'm going to transform this flower, make magic by adding something to it. So I'm going to turn the flower into the sheep. But first I'm gluing it down with gel medium, and I'm putting a coat on the back of the project and on the background to make a good adhesion. And I'm doing it a little bit off center for good composition. Giving a good coat on top. I want to seal this. I want it to turn it into a non-porous surface so that I can overpaint it with ease. And if I make a mistake, I'll be able to wipe it off with a baby wipe. Now I could leave this as a flower, but what I'm going to do is I have this sheep, so I cut out the head and I'm going to plop the head of this printable onto the sheep and turn the flower into a sheep's body. I just think this is so adorable. And I can take the sheep's head, size it up, size it down, use it with any floral. If you have an allium floral, a daisy, mums, chrysanthemum, look through your stash of napkins. Now I'm just going to turn this more into what I want, and I'm taking white gesso and I'm just putting it on in some areas and over painting. I'm using the napkin as the base and then just transforming it, turning it into the sheep's body. I don't know, right now I just have this fascination with sheep. They just make me happy. I'm adding white, I'm adding some yellow oxide, I'm adding some of the brilliant yellow. I come in and I add a little cadmium red for a little bit of tint of color. So again, I'm using the napkin as a base, but I'm not stuck to it. I'm not married to making it look exactly like the flower it was. In fact, I don't want it to look like that. I am making magic and turning it into something unique. I had to laugh. I had sent this picture of this finished project to Nicole at Ninny's Napkins, and she did not even recognize that this was a napkin or a flower. So there's the magic. I totally transformed it into something unique and used for my purposes. So look at your napkins in a different way. How can you combine it with printables or stamps and make a little mixed media magic of your own? So I'm loving the addition of the red here. It's just added another color, and the red of course goes so well with that turquoise. They are opposite each other on the color wheel, and it just really made it pop and gave it another layer of interest. So I'm loving that red, so I decide I'm going to take some of that red and my fan brush, and I'm going to splatter just a little speckle of red in the background. Now you can't pick it up right here. You can't really see it, but it is there in real life, and it's just the right touch. just that little bit, because you want everything on your page to work together. Came up with the saying, or saw it somewhere, you can count on me, counting sheep to your sleep. I printed it out on a couple different fonts, and I'm choosing this one. And what I'm doing is I'm what I call bubble cutting it around. So that's giving a little bit of a white border, but I'm getting rid of most of the white. And I want this to stand out. That's why I chose a font that was bold and bigger. Matching the font and the style of the font to the project is a creative endeavor. So I'm playing with where I want to put them, and I'm thinking I'm going to put it down the right side here. So I bubble cut everything, and then I think maybe I want to have it go across the page so your eyes kind of follow it around. And I'm liking that idea. And then here I get another idea. Now I've often used the shading technique to divide up the page, to add weight to the focal image. But here I'm going to use that technique to ground my sentiment. Just watch. So to make that wave, I'm just taking my Inktense block or Inktense pencil. This is I believe it's indigo blue. And I'm just making a swirl across the page that I'm going to mount my sentiment on. It's going to give it a little bit more weight so it's not just floating there. So here I'm just adding more color. Now Inktense pencils are ink. When they are activated, they become permanent. My favorite thing. I love this. It looks like a hill behind the sheep. And here I'm taking a little bit of black paint and water, activating the Inktense pencil and getting that blue-black across the hill. And instantly this just adds weight to the focal image. It transforms everything. There's some more magic. And it just adds something to the background. I'm going over it several times because I want to make sure that I completely activate that Inktense pencil. Because when I glue the sentiment down, I don't want to reactivate it and get it smudged. So here, I'm going to also shade around the focal image. This is going to make it pop. I start doing shading with my black acrylic paint in my usual way. And then I thought, you know what? I have my Inktense pencil out. I'm just going around and then activating it. So this is making it kind of blue-black, just like the wave that I go across the page. So here I'm just taking the pencil, outlining. How easy is this? Now here's something you may not know about the Inktense pencils. You can buy them singly. So if you can't afford or choose not to buy Inktense blocks or Inktense pencils, they are pricey. Highly recommend them, don't get me wrong. But you can buy one or two. You can buy a brown, you can buy a black, you can buy a dark blue, those colors that you might use for shading purposes. And the advantage over that, over a Stabilo All pencil, is that when it's activated, it's permanent. So here I'm adding black on top of the blue, and I like that effect. It's making my sheep stand out from the background, pushes the background back and makes the sheep come forward. And then I'm shading the sheep's head. And it does now look like the sheep is on a field, all because we added that wave. And really, this background, nothing too terribly fancy. Very simple. I love, love, love how the sentiment looks across the page. I've never done that before. So, and I'm thinking to myself, why haven't I done that before? But sometimes in the throes of creativity, in the throes of a page, you come up with an idea. And then if you like it, do it again and again and again. And I hope you give that one a try. Now I'm taking my charcoal pencil and adding some sketchy lines to the sheep. A little bit of black brought into the focal image. I'm not going around every petal. I'm adding lines wherever. I smudge some of it. I'm just going instinctually here. I'm not too worried about getting it so precise. Precise is overrated. Perfection is overrated. And there we have the finished page. I hope you love it as much as I do. Love this. I hope you give the swirl and sentiment combination a try. Close-ups of the finished project. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment. Until next time, go get creative.